Electrode is an electric football, and said football is the fastest Pokemon in the entire damn game. Electrode is a decent Pokemon in GSC Underused. While it does possess some great traits, GSC Underused isn't really structured in a way that its traits are needed that much. Electrode is the fastest Pokemon in the entire metagame, and it possesses Light Screen, Reflect, and Explosion. Electrode is a staple on hyper offense teams, and one of the main reasons these teams function at all. Electrode is able to support its offensive teammates with Light Screen and Reflect. It's excellent at doing this thanks to its speed and explosion. Pokemon like Scyther, Pinsir, and Granbull become significantly harder to deal with when supported by Light Screen and Reflect. Electrode itself is also decently strong and able to threaten flying and water types with Thunderbolts. Explosion is also the best offensive move in the entire game. Electrode threatens the tier's two primary normal resists, Haunter and Omastar, so it can be difficult to stop its explosion with good prediction. Electrode is a one-trick pony though. It only fits onto mega offensive teams. Electrode isn't much use defensively, and its attacking move pool is very shallow. Electabuzz is usually better on standard offensive teams because of its superior coverage and its strength. Electrode is also very predictable. The teams that Electrode fits onto are rather inconsistent, so you don't see Electrode much in tournament play. It's still effective when it does show up though. Let's analyse the electric football. Electrode's most standout and valuable trait is its ridiculous speed stat of 140. Electrode isn't just the fastest GSC Underused Pokemon, it's the fastest Pokemon in the entire game. Nothing, not even Crobat, Aerodactyl or Mewtwo can outspeed Electrode. This speed complements Electrode's move pool well. Electrode is able to outspeed everything and use Light Screen, Reflect, or Explosion before they can react. Electrode's speed also lets it revenge kill threats like Scyther, Gyarados, and Dodrio with Thunderbolts. Explosion is similarly useful when revenge killing the likes of Mr. Mime, Electabuzz, Pinsir, and more. Once Electrode gets onto the field, it can set up screens according to the situation. Against the Pokemon like Nidoqueen, Piloswine, or Pinsir, it can set up Reflect, and then switch to a teammate who can now handle them with great areas. Against special attackers, like Mr. Mime and Electabuzz, it can do the same with Light Screen. Due to Electrode's speed, it's not uncommon for it to set up both Light Screen and Reflect. This screen support is very useful for Electrode's offensive teammates. Curse Hidden Power Ground Granbull has an easier time getting onto the field and setting up behind Light Screen or Reflect. Pinsir takes less damage from Piloswine's Ice Beam behind Light Screen. Scyther can set up with far greater areas when Light Screen and Reflect are there to weaken attacks aimed at it. Screens aren't just beneficial for setup sweepers either. Mixed attackers, like Nidoqueen, benefit from them too. Explosion is also beneficial when trying to set up screens. When you use Explosion in Gen 2, you end the turn completely, letting you bring in another Pokemon for completely free. Electrode also possesses an electric resistance and decent special bulk, letting it switch into the likes of Mr. Mime, Electabuzz, Gyarados, Haunter, and Lantern with a degree of safety. It becomes better against these threats when it sets up Light Screen on the turn after. Electrode is also able to outspeed and 2-KO Scyther, the most dangerous Pokemon in the entire tier. Even if Scyther is out of Thunderbolt range, Electrode can just set up Reflect, or choose to explode on the book. Thanks to its supporting move pool and speed, Electrode is an integral member of hyper offense teams. Because of their poor defenses, they need all the offensive potential they can get. Electrode helps out the Scyther, Pinsir, and Granbull that flock these teams by increasing their defenses and granting them more opportunities to set up. It also provides defensive utility and can use Explosion whenever it pleases. Tanking Explosion with Haunter, and especially Omastar, is risky business because of Thunderbolts. You don't have to immediately explode Electrode by the way. It's often advisable to keep it around and only explode when necessary. In my opinion, it's better to keep it around so you can keep setting up screens. Electrode is able to force some real mind games. Without Electrode, hyper offense teams wouldn't function nearly as well. Electrode's most common item is Miracle Berry, though leftovers are also fine on it. With Miracle Berry, Electrode can dodge status moves for an extra turn, potentially letting us set up another screen or use Explosion. It lets you avoid being crippled by a potential thunder paralysis, which is kinda nice. You could theoretically run Electrode on standard offensive teams, but you would probably be better off with something else. Electabuzz is a preferable electric type, thanks to its coverage and higher special attack. Electrode is also common in agility pass teams before they were banned. You could theoretically use it on weird meta-type pass stuff, but it hasn't been explored yet. Electrode as a whole is probably underexplored. It rarely gets used in tournaments, so it hasn't been fully explored in my opinion. Though I can understand why that is. While Electrode is fantastic in hyper offense teams, it doesn't fit onto much else. Teams that don't sack multiple setup sweepers don't really need to run this mon. As mentioned earlier, other electric types outclass Electrode in basic offensive teams. Electrode has fundamental flaws too. Its attacking move pool is very shallow. It's basically limited to just hidden power if it wants to use coverage moves. Fitting hidden power water on Electrode is difficult, since it means giving up a screen. This means Electrode is stonewalled by Nidoqueen and Piloswine unless it kills itself with Explosion. Electrode's poor attack means that Explosion fails to outgo several Pokemon, including Nidoqueen, Piloswine, Blastoise, and Granbull. Electrode is a very predictable Pokemon. Whenever you see it, you know what it's gonna do. It's gonna sap screens, maybe fire off a Thunderbolt, and then explode. It's also possible to neuter Explosion entirely if you predict correctly with Haunter. Unless you are building some mega offensive team, it's rare you will use Electrode. That being said, it's still fantastic on certain team styles. Electrode is a decent Pokemon in the current GCUU climate. History-wise, I don't have much to say. Electrode has always been just kinda decent. It only fits onto really, really offensive teams. Before hyper offense teams, it was most commonly used on agility pass teams, since screens support let Girafarig and its teammates function with greater ease. In 2021, hyper offense teams began to be explored more, and these were where Electrode thrived. And then in 2022, these hyper offense teams got more refined, and agility pass was banned. This made hyper offense Electrode's home.